Leo Danielian. Leodanielian. No middle initial. We were poor. I'd like to start out by telling you our beginning. First, my grandparents, I never saw a grandparent. They were both massacred in 1915 by the Turkish Muslims. My mother watched while they went, being Christian, the Turkish at that time wanted all Armenians killed. They massacred 1.5 million, and four of my grandparents were, their heads were cut off, put on poles, and marched to a city. My mother and father changed their name to Muslim names. They got over here. That's the first part. And in 1934, I was about 10 years old. I was born in 1924. 1934 was a big depression. And my father, at that I was 10 years old. My father was making $10 a day. My mother had to scrub floors. I got a job selling papers on the corner. I was about 10, 11, I think. And I earned enough to buy a bicycle. When I got the bicycle, I got a route, newspaper route with the LA Times, which is on a Sunday, it's almost as heavy as paper could be.
So your hometown's Los Angeles?
Yes, Los Angeles was my hometown. Everything I had of any quality, I bought myself with my money. I bought my own suit. I may get a little emotional here. I bought a suit. I bought the bicycle. I bought a radio. I bought my clothes. We had hand-me-down clothes. So that is the beginning. I graduated from high school in 1942. That's when President Roosevelt said we're at war. And before this time, I was a nut about airplanes. I made model airplanes. Whatever model airplane was on, I'd buy and make. So that was primarily the reason I want to fly. I wasn't worried about the war. At that time, you're young, you don't care. It's exciting. I wasn't worried about defending anybody.
Could you tell us what was Los Angeles like before Pearl Harbor and then after Pearl Harbor? The feelings of the people and things.
I can't remember. I just don't remember. It's so much of a change that it was a lot of years. Well, we'll get to that later. In high school, I wanted to go fly, and I figured I'd go and fly in the Air Force. My mother heard of this, and she said, "You can't fly. You've got no driver's license," which I didn't have. My father said I was too young. And she went around and talked to her friends, and they told her, "Hey, he'd be drafted. He goes Air Force. He can't fly. He'd be mechanic on the ground. They don't shoot mechanics. They're way back." So that's how my mother signed the paper. So when I went through training, when I went to primary training, I soloed, which means the first time you fly alone. I say, "Hey, Mom," I called her on the phone. I was up near Fresno, California, in my primary trainer. And I said, "Mom, I just soloed." "What means solo?" "Flew alone." "You can't fly alone. I'm going to call Commandant." I said, "Mom, it's okay. It's just don't call anybody. You'll get me in trouble." Well, anyway, that was one incident that I thought was kind of humorous, and I never had a driver's license till I came back from the war. In primary training, I had a little problem. After I soloed, which has no problem, I did all kind of aerobatics and everything, but we had a particular training where you cut your throttles off here. It's a primary training, 2 wings, and you cut your engines off. You come all the way around here with no power and land. And you have to do that 3 times, and you have to land in a circle. Well, we were on a auxiliary field, which is a farm field with roads, with fences, barbed wire fences, and trees in front. So you had to come over those trees and hit the landing. Well, my instructor standing, we had a first lieutenant that's like the meanest guy in the world in that time. Oh, they call them TAC officers. And he was there, but my instructor was a civilian who sometimes drank before we flew, and That's the only way he could fly because it scared him. He told us. That's when he introduced himself. So anyway, I came around the first time right on the spot. I was, oh God, I was an ace. Second time I came around, I cut the throttle too soon, the power. So when I turned, the tree, mulberry tree, get bigger and bigger. I'm getting lower and lower. So I gunned the engine and cut off about 6 feet off the tree and hit the barbed wire fence, you know, the old country roads, the barbed wire fence on this side and that side. My tail wheel caught on one of the barbed wires, and I hit down the road, and when I hit the power, I really had a lot of power. I took off with about 100 feet of barbed wire fence and 2 fence poles going like this, and I turned around and I said, boy, that's it. Turned around, it went all the way around, and there was high tension wires way in the back. So I looked back and I'm doing this. What happened was my horizontal stabilizer was bent in about a foot, so the airplane was yawing, going one way or the other. So I had my foot over here and that, and airplane back's doing this with the fence posts. Well, I came around the first time, I got rid of one fence post, went back around again, and I made a beautiful landing on one wheel. It was really good. So I landed, and the first lieutenant stood me up at attention. His nose was that far away from me. You little bitch. I got a 13-year-old that can fly the better. What's the goddamn? And then he said, you realize we have to tow the airplane back 13 miles because of the damage? Sir, I'll fly it back. You'll fly it back. Anyway, that was a good experience. So a committee meets to figure out what's going to happen to me. I didn't tell them I didn't have a driver's license because they might have held that against me, which was kind of a stupid thought. So I went in there, and they met for about an hour, and I came back, and they said, you did such a you were stupid for cutting it back, but you did such a beautiful, superior job bringing that airplane back and landing on that one wheel with all that gunk behind you. That shows us a lot of guts, and you were cool. And I was. Really, anybody could have done that. So anyway, I went through great. Well, I passed everything. Went to basic. Then we had another problem.
Now, when you did basic, was it?
Basic training is a single engine.
Okay.
It's one wing. It's like a, what can I tell you? I can't remember the name of it, but it's a different airplane. It's an AT. It's just a low wing. Single, with a cockpit this time. See, the open cockpit on the other one. So anyway, I was doing great. All the lessons and flying, and hell, I was doing it, oh God, getting A's on everything. And then what you used to have to practice is a spin. You get up to about 10,000 feet, and you stall it out. The stall is what I did when I went through the tree. And the airplane, and then it turns, and it'll turn one way or the other, and you go left or right stick. Well, I had to do this solo. And I came down and spun this one day, and spun, and it wouldn't come out. And I tried it 2 or 3 times. Perfect. I did everything right. I got down to 2,000 feet, and I said, I better get my ass out of here. So I reached up like this and pulled up, and I had to put both feet under my seat to pull off, and I pulled off on a wing. The only problem was the centrifugal force. I went on the wrong side, so I was stuck. So I pulled a ripcord, and it pulled me off the airplane, and the parachute opened 50 feet before I hit the ground. Because I was clambering, trying to get off the wing. I had to pull the ripcord, and I could see the ground coming up. It was about 2,000 feet when I got out. And what I did, I took one swing, the airplane hit flat. I took one swing and hit the ground, about from here to where that door was over there, and it blew up. And I found out later that the parachute had caught on the tail. The strings, they call them, it's silk, and 3 of them cut loose. And I just had half a parachute coming down. And that was, oh boy, Mom was looking after me again. So then they had another meeting, And they were short of pilots, I guess. So they found out later, while I was still flying, that the ailerons were made out of plywood. You know, they were running out of metal or something, and they were warped. And before I did this, there were 2 others that crashed and got killed in the same accident. They warp. The ailerons are things that turn you left and right. And when you spin, the one was warped, out of shape. They knew that that caused it, and it wasn't me. So then, everything felt fine. So I got, they sent me to Blythe, California. I want to be a fighter pilot, but after those 2, they said they need somebody in the cockpit, pilot, flying with me. There was a little tension when they read the accident report, even though I was cleared. Anyway, we went to Blythe, California, and we got into B-24s. I have pictures of it there. It's a gigantic bomber at that time. 4 engines, a 10 crew, and we carried about 30,000 pounds of bombs. And it was a real killer, and it would take you up to 28,000 feet. So after we trained there, it was a group. They were all instructors, which was great. We had, every pilot was an instructor. They had maybe 400 or 500 hours. I had about 150. I'm at the left seat. So no problem. We went through there. The whole group flew over, and we lost, we went to Lincoln, Nebraska, and got a brand new airplane, and then flew our airplane over, which was our 34th bomb group was probably one of the first bomb groups sent over there. We were there for D-Day. That's another story. So on the way over, one of our engines cut out, a brand new airplane. So we had to land at the St. Lucie, island of St. Lucie. Oh boy. We stayed there a week. They had a cruise boat. They're supposed to protect anybody that ditched. We fished. The liquor there, a bottle of gin was $2, 40 ounces. And there was a Frenchman that ran that island, and he had a beautiful wife. And the first thing we got was a briefing to our crew. That was his wife, and she's untouchable. And he walks around, I'm serious, with a pistol on his hip. So we stayed there a week and had a great time. We lived in a beautiful place on a hill, seeing the ocean, and then we go fishing. Took a week to get an engine. That was one of the fine and nice things in being in the Air Force. So we landed there, and we trained, and we lived in huts. The officers lived in one, metal huts, and it was cold there, and you had a fire with wood. That's how you kept warm. And we were in Mendlesham, England. Okay? And that's when we trained, and one of our first missions was D-Day. First mission. Well, can you imagine thousands and thousands of bombers taking off at the same in intervals and not running into each other? England was a small place. When you figure, you get up to 5,000 feet and you could turn around and find 10 airfields at 5,000 feet. That's how crowded we were. So anyway, before that, I'll tell you some interesting things about flying in a bomber. First thing, you wear a heated suit, thin, heated all the way down to your feet and up to here. Okay? Then you wear your heavy clothes, and you're heated all the way from your feet all the way up to here. Okay, and then you put the suit on, and then you put the strap on for your parachute. You don't sit there. It's a chest, and you snap it on. Then it's down here. Then you have your oxygen mask, and a light steel helmet on. None of this fancy stuff you see pilots wearing, that crush on the hat. You know. And then you plug in. Now the reason for that is you go to 28,000 feet, which is 50 degrees below zero. Now there you are, okay? You sit down, oxygen mask, 12,000 feet, that's when you need oxygen. You go over that without oxygen, your lips turn blue. And after that, you're dead. Okay? If you have to walk around for some reason, and there's not very many reasons for you once you sit in that seat, you have a portable bottle that you can put on your trap and you walk around. Now that's what a bombardier does when we get up to altitude for bombing. He has to go back there on this little railing. It's a steel shaft that goes all the way down, and these bombs have little propellers on them. They're timed so that when it goes down to so many feet, it blows up, or it hits the ground and blows up. He has to go out and pull a little wire out, the spinner, so it'll work. He has to get out with his bottle. Now here's a problem. Breakfast. You want to be very careful you don't drink any coffee. Okay? Be careful you don't drink too much water. And be careful you don't eat food that makes you go number 2. Because if you got to go number 2, hello, 38,000 feet, if you take off that jacket, 50 degrees below zero, huh? And there's no place to do it. Okay, now if you want to go number 1, that's okay, because you get down to 12,000 feet, you can go number 2 in the bucket, down number 2. And number 1, you had a hose that went all the way down to the bottom of the ship and outside. And you had that little, what do they call that little thing, or you stick in there so it don't splash around. What's that? Yeah. And normally it sticks up here. And the navigator sits down here. We're elevated, the pilot's up here. So that little wire and that thing up here is right over his head. And on one mission, I must have drank too much water. So I went there and number 1 on the tube, went down. Unfortunately, we forgot that at 12,000 feet, the end of the tube is still frozen. So all of that urine went up all the way up and over his oxygen mask, down on his face and his body. So those things happen. And there's no bathrooms on those airplanes. A lot of people don't understand this because the airplane is not pressurized. If it's pressurized and we get a piece of flak, one little piece of flak, shoo! Even in your civilian aircraft, if you get any hole, your pressure, you got oxygen, but if a door goes out, they'll just suck you right out because of the pressure outside and the pressure inside. So that's what we had to live with for 8 hours on these missions. And you didn't put on the steel hat until you got where they went. Now, the other thing is, the enemy down there doesn't like you. In fact, they hate you because they shoot at you. And what they shoot at mostly was the 8mm, 4 in a row, all over. Sometimes where you didn't know they were. Because if you knew where they were, you could turn and fly around them. And they put them on rail cars, mobile. And the puffs would go like this. Poof, 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 poof. If it hits your airplane, it's gone. Your wings float down. And they go like that. And then the other gun, there's 4 guns. And then they'll change them where they'll go like this. So if you first see them and you see them like this, you pull up. But then they go this way, and this way. They change. And it's maybe 10 miles of them. And you're flying with 12 here, 12 here, 12 here, and 12 here in a group. So, okay, and then when you get through with this, now you have to fly very close formation. The closer you are, the longer you're going to live. Because when you got 36 airplanes, a group, flying tight, normally the Nazis would fly down on a loose, they'd look for a loose group. They'd fly down and come right between you and shoot. While they're doing, they get 5 or 6 airplanes. Another thing is, figure this one out. 36 airplanes times 10 machine guns on each airplane. How many you got? 360, 50 caliber machine guns shooting at them. They never attacked us because we probably flew because we had the best pilots. They trained as a group. They were instructors. And then they taught us how to do it. And I was a little guy and I had to use, one thing about the B-24, I sat in the right seat, and the throttles were over here in a flying formation over here. B-17 was a little different. We changed. But that's what we did. Now, when we got near the target, we go in a row, line up one after another because you have to. And the bombardier down in the nose gets in there and tells you what to do. He's got a, and the pilot sees an instrument out here where he turns left, turns right, and when the flak starts coming up, because that's when the flak really starts coming up. And that's it. We hit, and then we go home, get down to 12,000 feet, and take off all that junk we had on us. So that's a mission. So it's usually 8 hours. So I've given you what pilots went through on a bombing mission. Now, the first one we went on was what did they say? D-Day. We must have had 5,000 bombers up there, and we couldn't but drop our bombs. Clouded. General Eisenhower evidently didn't look at the weather very good because every once in a while we looked down there. You couldn't see the ships. If you were a golfer, you hit a 3-wood, you could reach the other boat. But when we got over land, we couldn't. So guess what we had to do? Fly back and drop those 20,000 pounds, I don't know how many pounds, each airplane in the English Channel. And what scared me one time, when they started digging that tunnel from England to France, how many bombs they were going to run into. But I didn't hear anything about that. Well, that's what I can tell you about flying a mission. We later changed to B-17s, which was like going from a big 16-wheeler truck into a Cadillac. They had 2 sets of controls, and I'd had my own throttles over here, and easier to fly. We could go 5,000 feet higher, where the aircraft, where the 88s couldn't hit us, and that's how I flew I flew 32 missions, of which you got an air medal at every 6th mission. So I have 5. In other words, I got 6 medals there. That's how they put oak leaf clusters on them. So when you see my the glass where I hang those all of those medals, they don't show the oak leaf. So if you see 13 there, you can add about 4 more. So it turns out about 32 times that I was given a medal. So that explains how they are. And those medals I can explain now at a good time. There are medals where you just get there and you could have a supply job, you can have this job, but you're in that combat area, and you get a ribbon and a medal sometimes. So there's a different of what the wartime medals are, like the Flying Cross, which I had. That's the 2nd highest medal. Air medal with 4 leaves, and then I got some other ones when I was in intelligence. That was another thing that I would like to talk to you about. I also flew, during this whole time of mine, I flew C-130, which is still flying now. And I flew off the coast. There was a 6091st Reconnaissance Squadron, I can name it. We flew intelligence. We flew off the coast of Russia, 12 hours, listening, spying.
Yeah, this is after World War II.
Yes. Oh yeah, we were listening to their command and control, and we take off from Japan in a C-130. Again, they're flying this airplane. You know how old they are? There are 10 different models now, and this used to go to Texas. I couldn't go in the back. I didn't have the clearance, and I was a command pilot then. And you fly, and then these Russian jets would come up and hang on your wings and just look and give you the finger. And if you got inside that 20 miles, they could shoot at you, shoot you down. So during that time, we did a lot of training. In case I don't want to explain it, that when we went down, what we could do to get the message back. And I don't think I should tell you about it. They may use it again. But anyway, I got 4 missions flying there. If you flew so many, because it was that was a Cold War, believe me. We did a lot of things that were very close to that. And when they didn't want you to stay up there any longer, you know what they do? They come up over there and full throttle on the jets, 2 of them, and they almost flip you over with that thrust. But when we told them to go home, we'd at 20,000 feet, we'd put that airplane nose down and get off the water about 20 feet full gun. We don't want to get shot down. And also then, I was also a tanker pilot. What happened was when I had to go to a school, command and staff school, then they got to reassign you. So they found out I was a pretty good pilot, so they sent me to a trainer flying C-97 airplanes that was called something else, a big tanker. It used to, Pan American used to fly them. And they turned it into KC-97s, 30,000 pounds of gas. We were stationed in Louisiana. That's where we trained. It was 8th Air Force Headquarters at that time. But we had to go up to Goose Bay, Labrador, is where we really were needed, because we had a war mission. We were gonna refuel the first flight of B-52s to bomb Russia when the war started. So when we got there, we were under a war plan. And we lived in a mole hole, four floors down, bomb-proof, nuclear bomb-proof. And I was a command pilot then, and I was, at that time, every outfit I got into, I became an instrument pilot, because I had a lot of experience by now. I ended up with 6,000 hours. And that's a lot of days. And this is another very interesting thing. You had a crew. You go up there for 3 months at a time. You leave Barksdale at 70 degrees, 14 hours flying prop airplane, and you land there and it's 20 below. and you had a station wagon. Your crew was a crew. If you want to go to the movies, your crew, you had to have a crew at each position to go with you. If the guy that ran the tailspoon, the boom, if he didn't want to go, you had to find a boomer to go with your crew. You had to have your crew no matter where you went. You eat together. Where you're on the mission, and you'd be on and off a week for the 3 months. And I had to go there twice, 3 months and 3 months before I got transferred, which was it was tough. And one time we had a couple of one big thing that almost got me killed was we taxied out one day on the ramp, and you run your engines up, and we're loaded with fuel. We're taxiing out on the ramp before we take off, and all of a sudden one of those tanks leaked. And my boom operator says, "Major, shut them down." And he said, "Fuel on the ground." We must have had JP4 that deep when we got out of the airplane, and if we kept the sparks going, we were going to blow up. The engines were running. We shut them down real quick and jumped out, and I had JP4 fuel up to my ankles. That was close. And when those tanks just separated. So anyway, those are the 2 interesting flights I had besides bombing. And then they got me at headquarters because they thought I was smart about some things. So they put me in traffic control. Well, I had 6 different jobs, you notice on the sheets there. I could tell you what they were, but I didn't list them. They're on that list. I was in the Auditor General for 2 years, and I was, because of my accounting, they took me out of flying and put me in that, and I hated it. I used to go to a base. I became a supervisory auditor. And then they sent me to Japan to go to Vietnam as a budget officer. The first group that went over to Vietnam, Air Force group, was called, I can't remember it, but they called it, it's a temporary thing. And they had airplanes, they had all kinds of materiel, and they needed a budget officer. But I was assigned to the 13th Air Force in the Philippines. So I was the only one. I was a budget officer. They sent me over there to get the annual budget. I'd walk in, I went over there, I'd walk into the supply. Get out of here, don't you know we're fighting the war? What do you mean? I don't know how much I need.
What year was this?
In the 60s.
Okay. Early 60s?
Sometime, yeah. Sometime around. Don't ask me that because I got selective memory.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm 85, I'm 85 years old now, and I can't remember all these things.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Was that early in our commitment
Yes.
to Vietnam?
Oh, yeah. We were the first group. I'm over there. I go over to the to the wing commander, and I said, your supply officer won't, get the hell out of here, I'm busy. So I got 7 different organizations. I got to fly to 15th Air Force headquarters in Hawaii, and tell them how I need all this stuff. So I learned one thing from a budget officer that was there. He'd been there a long time. He understood my problem. He says, every one of these classifications has got a name, like wagon train, like hayloft, like this. So I'm sitting there as a major at 5th Air Force headquarters with all these colonels sitting there. They're trying to make up their budget. And 5th Air Force took over 13th, which was over the group over there, or the temporary group. Well, I sat down in my little, I was living in Vietnam. I was there. I had to sit there and do it in my room in Saigon headquarters and figuring out all these names. I went to a dictionary. I went to all kinds of things, figure out names. So I sat there, and the colonel would say, okay, now we're talking about supply. I said, well, sir, is there anyone cleared for haystack? The colonel turned around to the major. I've never heard of it. It's pretty high stack. How about munitions? Well, we need 50,000 there to start, and we need 100,000 in supplies. That's what I did. I come back, I got a major general as a boss. So I show him all the money we got. How the hell did you get that? I said, don't ask. Maybe that helped me get promoted to lieutenant colonel, I don't know. But anyway, that was another interesting item I had. And when I was an auditor, they sent me to California, Los Angeles. When I finished, I had to audit all these bases and everything. And they sent me to my hometown in Los Angeles. And then I was auditing bases up and down California. And in between all of this time, I got out after the war, okay? Then I had a job with Hollywood. I didn't mention this. I worked in the accounting department, which I didn't like. And I flew out of. I was in the auditing section.
Yeah, but what studio?
Universal Studios, yeah. And I lived there. And I used to go down to Long Beach and fly reserve. So I was flying a twin-engine bomber there. And it took me about 6 months because all these lawyers and doctors that were flying, they got out of it because they're lawyers and doctors. So I got in, they got out because of the war. So I got in there and I volunteered to go in. That's when I went back in. I left that out. That's when I got back in to Japan. And that's when I was flying. That's how I got involved in Vietnam at first.
Did you get involved in?
No, Korea was in. And then I used to fly support to all of the Air Force detachments. We had 20 detachments, fly mail into them and all kinds of supplies. And colonels used to come in from 5th Air Force to get their, see if they got there on the 31st and stayed there to the 1st, they got $200 off on each month on their taxes. Wasn't that nice? Mm-hmm. And we had 5 C-47s. You remember that airplane? Mm-hmm. And I flew 500 hours in those. I used to fly all around, and that's when I was a support pilot with a C-47. Now I did fly 13 different kind of airplanes. Four engine types, and 4 transport, DC-3, DC-4, DC-6, and I flew 4 bombers, 2 bombers, reconnaissance bomber, tanker bomber. Mm-hmm. So that tells you what I mean. I probably left out a lot of stuff, but I think you've heard enough.
No, this is just getting good. Let me ask you a little bit about World War II and some of the missions that you flew there.
Okay.
Okay. What type of missions did you fly after D-Day?
Okay. There's one mission we flew that was right after D-Day. We started flying low. And one real interesting mission was when that big general, tank general, what was his name? Patton. He was going so fast he ran out of maps. We had to fly in and drop maps to him. It's 500 feet. You could see. He said we were getting briefed, and we say, "How will we know where we?" He says, "Just fly this way. You'll see the dust, smoke, dust. I'm telling you." They just went shooting, bang, bang. We dropped maps. Then after a couple of days, we had to fly fuel into Orly Airport in France in big containers, 5-gallon containers like you have, load it up on our bombers and fly into Orly Field to give him fuel for his tanks. Yeah, that was a good mission. And then we started flying low. And we stopped doing that because they were putting, we didn't know where their ACAC was, and they were putting the guns on these what do you call them, train bodies. I don't know what you would call them, and the sides would fall out. The guns are there, 88s. Special things they put on a train. And they shot down a few of us because at low altitude, that was. So we flew various, normally, they were marshalling yards. We never went after civilians, unless if they were there. And we bombed munition. Oh, ball bearing plant. Oh boy, that was a mean one. We attacked a war-making machine. Let me explain this. The heavy bombers, 8th Air Force, I think the 9th was tactical. Strategic. Remember, strategic is war-making things. Things that are going to affect the war. Not right now, but coming up. Ammunition dumps. Marshalling yards, for instance, were the big one, because if you knock out a big marshalling yard, a big one, they can't go anywhere. They can't supply, they can't do this. And you know what they did? All of their were trucks. Pretty soon, all you could see were trucks. No more trains. Because we took the tactical then people with the P-38s. They come down, and their mission was hitting trucks. And the barges. Oh, God, Germany loaded with barges. Everywhere you went, big barges. And, of course, when we couldn't bomb, we went after targets of opportunity. And lots of times, we'd see barges. But there was one mission that was funny. We made a lot of mistakes. We had these propaganda leaflets. And we also had bombs. We had, fire bombs. But we were supposed to drop the firebomb somewhere and drop the leaflet somewhere. So we couldn't. We dropped the leaflets and then we dropped the firebombs on top of them. Right over a forest by a big lagoon, by a big river. But we didn't hit the river, we hit the forest. So I think a lot of greenies would have been mad at us. Oh boy, get that out of there, will you? Please?
Yeah, it's okay. Was your plane ever hit?
Yes, with anti-aircraft. In fact, I had my chin hit one time. A piece of flak came up. Oh, yeah. There was I got to tell you about this. One big mission. Denmark has got locks in it for ships to go through. And their submarines and their warships that have to go all the way around, from Denmark all the way up to Sweden and whatever you got up there. And we went in there and we had 36 ships. We lost 12. They were shooting their guns, their naval guns. It's a naval base. They were shooting these big, you seen these big guns on a battleship? They were shooting, one would blow up, they timed them, would blow up, and you'd see a B-24 with the wings coming down right in front of us. We lost, in my squadron, we lost 4. We had 30, so we lost 12 airplanes with 10 people aboard each plane. That was our biggest. I forgot. I almost didn't tell you about that. And we had flak all over the air. We had 200 pieces of flak. We came back with one engine out. And my mother was watching me, I guess, again.
How badly was your ship hit?
Well, we hit one engine. I had one airplane that he was shot. His engine fell right down, right next to it. We were flying so close, but we were lined up. This was before we got there, and we came right down, and we turned, and he just went right over like that.
Did any of the airplanes ever collide with each other up there?
We never had one.
Yeah.
Which was, you know why? We had the best. We were told we had the best. When they came over, because we were brand new.
Yeah.
They had a general ops officer. He was running all the operations in Europe. He came up. He had the flight check us out. He said he never saw a group, 36 airplanes, fly as close. I mean, it went one wing over the other, so far from the prop, you couldn't believe. Fighter would never come. They used to fly by us. And they're the ones that shot down a lot of the airplanes. The 34th Bomb Group was probably the most proficient ground group. And of course, after we left, then the trainees came in, and I don't know what happened after that.
Now, you said you flew B-24s?
Yes.
Okay, how long did you fly B-24s?
How long?
Yes.
Until I flew 32 missions, about the 30th mission.
So,
I got to tell you a story there.
yeah.
You know, when you train in the B-24, it was 6 weeks. Huh? Every airplane is different. It's not like an automobile. You know, you get an automobile, you got to you brake, shift, go, turn, move. Every airplane is different. This airspeed on takeoff, landing, cruising, everything is different. So guess what they did? One day they came there and said, Leo, you're going to be on one of these crews. You're about to leave, but we're going to use you. Your crew was great. You and your crew. And by that time I made first pilot, and I had flew one mission. So they figured, I'm leaving, but they're not going to lose much. So they put us in one of the airplanes, B-17. It was like a kite. Oh, God. Tail wheel. See, B-24 doesn't have a tail wheel. All the wheels are in front. You're flying along. So I'm getting out taxiing. In the first place, the mechanic sits between you on that airplane. And he said, how many hours you got in this airplane? We don't have any. We're getting
So they just put you in an airplane and say, fly.
Yeah.
Just, no training whatsoever?
No.
And you're going to fly a mission?
Yeah, we got a mechanic. We had an instructor. He flew, and we sat in the airplane and trained. Okay. So after we went up 4 hours, landed, tomorrow you can go fly now. We shot one landing. 4 hours. In training, you got at least 60, 70 hours. So me and another guy named Flack, that was his name. We went out to this airplane the next day. And Flack had he had that kind of training we had. And when we were trained, one of us was in the radio compartment, and the other one would come up, and the other guy would take off. So we were just going to fly around, from here to there and there to there, and just fly around and come back. So we flipped the coin. The guy named Flack, who's going to sit in the right seat, who's going to sit in the left seat. Flipped the coin. I won. Okay? And this our crew chief mechanic, he says, how many hours you got there? I said, 2. Yeah. He had 2. He said, I'm going to get out of here. So we're taxiing, and I forgot it was a tail wheel. I'm hitting the throttle. I said, oh, shit. So we got up there, and we got lost. And at that time, they had a system in English where you said a code word, and they got you. They direct you to where you're landing. And of course, we went over to Buzz's girlfriend's house. I'm saying, well, everybody was doing it. And we came back in, and it worked. Then I got a crew. That we had to do that because they were running out of airplanes, and they knew that what the hell, if you fly a B-24, and oh God, it was like beautiful. It floated, and we went 3,000, 4,000 feet higher, and it was just like you sit up here, and the throttles are here. Everything was just great, but it didn't have the. One other thing, we had a bombardier. This is a side, and he didn't like flak. Scared him, and he's laying down in the and they're shooting at him. So we used to have these. We used to put on a suit, armor on us. It was a flak suit. I forgot to tell you when we got into it, and they were heavy. And a couple of days later, one day, we started. Our nose. There was a B-24. Our nose was heavy. Yeah, I landed and bang, the nose was just coming down. So the crew chief, a mechanic, we had a mechanic flew with us, flight mechanic. He went in there and he found steel mat out of they use them for something, pieces, about that 4 big pieces of steel that he lay on, besides his flak suit. That was funny.
Did you stay with the same crew all through the war?
Yes, except we lost our bombardier one day when he flew with another crew. One guy got sick, they picked one, and he went to the 13th Stalag Luftwaffe, one of those prisons, and he was there for 13 months till the war ended. At least that long. We lost it. He's the only one, and he didn't die. We didn't lose one member on our crew, except. Well, that's what I said. We flew good. We had we had the best pilots, and of course I learned a lot. I learned to be a damn good. I did. I could fly. I'll tell you why. I came back, and they made an instructor out of me. Got out in 72, 75. I can't remember, but it was in that area. And I was sent there because I was at that time I was a reconnaissance pilot, and C-130s. They had C-130s there, a base near there. But that was at Langley. That's right. I went to Langley, and that's where I had to work in tactical Air Force. And at that time, they were using cards, computers, and I was working with software support. And all of our airplanes, this was at tactical headquarters. We ran tactical Air Force. All the Air Force is tactical, and they go to the. Everything was run by computers about that time in the airplanes. And when there was a glitch, or they go to the contractor. And the contractor would charge $2,200 a byte, and they were using cards, IBM cards, to do all this. So they had me running around trying to correct this, and I worked with a civilian, and that worked for a while. And that was there. But then from there, they sent me to the Armed Forces College I made colonel there, and there I had a group, and there was classes. It was just like a school. It was there right across the water from Langley, Virginia, and it was and they made me a class. Whatever you want to call them, a teacher. And I was in there with the Army, Navy, and Marines. And I was lieutenant colonel when they sent me there. This was from TAC headquarters over there. And I got promoted there. It was just like a classroom. You teach them. You had regular, it wasn't intubated. It was just the fact that you had things you had to tell them. You had Army, Navy, Marine, civilians. And of course they had the class, all of your books and everything. All you had to do is be able to read and talk. And they found out that I wasn't too worried about talking. I could talk pretty good. So from there, I stayed 2 years and I got promoted. Well, there was a colonel. This is a good story. There was a general, TAC headquarters, that was at way back when I was flying tankers. He was a colonel. He ran the wing back then at Shreveport. Interesting how life is. We had an exercise, a big exercise of B-52s and tankers. And I was ahead of the I got to be I told you about the tankers going to Goose Bay. And I became an instructor, and I was a chief pilot. And this one mission, they had flunked. He had the second chance. And he wanted to make general, of course. So we were leading a group of 6. I was a lead plane. So when we flew, it was just like flying formation, and you'd separate, and the big B-52s would come in and get it. It was an exercise. And these exercises were important. The 3 stars are watching you. So we take off. He's right behind me. It's a jump seat. I'm in the left seat. He's right behind me. He's calling me Leo. Boy, that's great, because he found out that I was pretty sharp as an auditor because I got a lot of people fired. They weren't doing their jobs, but that's another story. So anyway, he's behind me. We get up, we take off. We don't get 1,000 feet off the ground, and the cowl flap won't close, won't open. Now, a cowl flap on an engine is where the air goes into. It's got to have an exhaust and air. And we had one of the best engineers in the world. He did something or another. We stayed up there, and that engine looked like it was going to quit. If that happened, that would have been one blow. Maintenance. Ooh. That's even as bad as if you don't meet at time. So he got it fixed. Okay. So we get up there, and 1 degree is 60 miles. You knew that. In the air, it's the same thing. Now, we have to be at a certain point within so many minutes. I mean, it's tough. Everything's timed. And you're competing with another group. It's a whole bunch of groups at one time. It's like the big war. And he needed to be real good. It would work out good. So what happened was we ran into a front. Lightning, thunder. Most everybody would turn. He asked me, what do you think? I said, what do you think, Colonel? You're the boss. You want to go in? Oh, sure, let's go. All the other ones turned away. Every one of them. We went right through. I had a navigator that could get you through anything. He didn't know that. We used to do that all the time. We went in and he went around that thing. We were there within 2 minutes. We were the only ones. Perfect. Oh, this is really a true story. And we went through everything, and we came back. He says, "You mind if I get up in that left seat and make a few left, right, and make a few lines?" No, get in the left seat. It was at night, after the mission, 5-hour mission. He was a good pilot. I guess he checked out a long time ago. When you're a colonel at that time, so he made 2 beautiful landings. We went back in. He says, "I want you to come up to the briefing room." That B-52, one of his B-52s were the ones that was feeding off of us, his lead crew. So I said, "I want you and your crew to come up." He went up and had beer there. And the airmen and us, we were up there. I'm going to shoot my ass out. He's probably going to say court-martial for running through a thunderstorm. I mean, it was bumpy. Most everybody would have wet their pants. Anyway, he turned around. He said, "Shut up, everybody." Major Danielian, will you stand up with your crew? And these are all these pilots that find a big one, you know, like the bomber pilot and the, you know, air football, the passer and the guard. And he said, I want you to look at these guys here. They made it, fellas. I want a round. Beer first and then an applause. He says, they did a job that you wouldn't believe. He got promoted after that. So guess what? When I went to, after all these years, then I get up there, TAC headquarters, he's there. He's not TAC headquarters, he's the Air Force 3-star. 3-star. Hey? And I'm there teaching, and we used to invite people for lunch. And I said, well, I know a guy up there that's 3-star that used to be a colonel I used to fly for. And the 2-star that ran the school there invited him. So I could be sitting at the table at lunch. Oh, what a lunch that was up there, too. You know, all these guests, they could be, usually they're big wheel from the State Department, headquarters, Washington, Pentagon. And he didn't know I was going to be there. So I walked up and he says, oh shit, Leo, in front of all these people. He goes over and he shakes my hand. He said, this is the best damn pilot in the Air Force. And then I got promoted. I got promoted before then. I was a colonel then. And he pulled me he pulled me back. He said, I want you working for me. So I was glad, because that's a dead. If you're a colonel and you're in that school, you ain't going anywhere. Of course, he told me when he went through my file, he said, you know something? You were too good an auditor. You got 2 full colonels retired early, and they deserve to be retired early, but they spread it around about you. And he said, you would have been a general as far as I'm concerned. And but I enjoyed working for him, and then I stayed there, and then I worked on the fighter software. See? I'm under him now, because they were having a lot of trouble, and what they would do, they go to contractors. Now, I worked on the F-16. It was really hot then. That's still flying. Like I say, 1 bite, 2 bites go out, contractor comes in with a team. So I helped set up an Air Force software computer support. Huh? And guess what? When I was working at Hughes, I told you I was Hughes, didn't I?
Yeah.
That's when I got out one time in between.
Yeah.
I knew these guys at the Navy because they were working on a Navy, Hughes was working on a radar. And I knew these guys. They had a Navy software support unit in California, up the coast, where they had a Navy research, a development outfit. And I knew all those guys. I used to go up there. Hughes was using them on their radar. See? And I went up there and I knew the guy running it and everything. So when I was at the Pentagon, 3 or 4 years later, I got it made. I ran down. We saved $11 million the first year. I went down there with Leo, how you doing? And I got him noted in the Pentagon when I was there, because I knew he was there, and I knew we needed a support center like they had.
Yeah.
Guess what? Within 3 months, I had an Air Force pilot from Nellis come down and fly for the Navy and work together with them, and they were working together with them, and then we developed 5 Air Force guys going down there, and they were doing the support. And in 1 year, we saved $11 million. Now, I may be out of sync sometimes on timing and where I was. Like I said, I worked for Hughes. Yeah. That was the time I was out. But then I don't know if that was just before I retired or not. But anyway, that's the way it worked.
What did you do after you got out of the Air Force?
Okay. I got out of the Air Force, and that's when I went to Hughes. Because I got, yeah. And I worked 2 years there, and there wasn't really a job there. They were pulling me out there for whom I knew. Okay? But I don't know if we want to put that on there.
Yeah, that's the way it
works. It works. And I got out. And then, what did I do? Probably nothing.
If you had to do it again, would you do it all over again? What would you do different?
Yeah. What would I do different? I would have been easier as an auditor. I was tough. I went by the letter. Nobody else did. I did some things in auditing. That's what I was going to bring up. And I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up. Preambulation. We had too many. That's how I became a supervisory auditor. And that's how I got bounced. Anyway,
What is preambulation?
preambulation means walk around and watch what's going on at the base. Not just in the books. And boy, it works. You go to an air base, for example, you look at things that maybe you're not supposed to look at. For instance, when I was at Yokota, that's one time where I was a base auditor. They had an officers club and a men's club, and they were checking the slot machines. We finally caught a guy that never bought a slot, and he was making $300 a month off the slot machines, and his girlfriend living with him, the sergeant, lived with him, and she was the one that paid off. That's watching things. Watch trucks. Watch construction. I got a colonel in California. I can't remember the name of the base. It was right up near San Francisco. It was a base where they sent people overseas, and I was a supervisor there. And I went up there, and the auditor there, I was auditing him. I was a supervisor. And went up there. This colonel, he's a great auditor. He's like my son. The lights went off and on. He used $2,000 of money that belonged to the airmen. It's a fund that the airmen had. He was taking that money and building up his office. When you walked in there, it was like he was an admiral. If you've ever been on an aircraft carrier, that's another story, you walk up there, and it's like the best hotel in the world. You don't know how, nobody knows. If they ever saw it, it's just like the airplane that the president flies in. That's where his office was when I walked in. So I asked him, we had intermediate, what we did, we'd go in and we write a report and then come back and see if they took care of it. So I said, where does money come? Was it appropriated funds? Oh, no, I won't use appropriated funds. Non-appropriated. Huh? Non-appropriated funds is what belongs to the airman. Huh? Appropriated funds is what you do when you go in and renovate your office.
Yeah.
So I wrote him up. You know when I wrote him up? He got it. You're not going to send this report out? Yes. He called the Auditor General, 2-star. I'm a major. He said, you shouldn't have done that. That's going to cost him the generalship. That was it. I'll never forget that. You tell me what I would do. I don't know. I'd probably do the same thing. But that cost. When you think about things, which you hit me about what you did, and I was that way with a lot of people. You can't be. I think I have to be. And other things, I wasn't as. I'm a purist. Boy, I'll tell you. I think that's why I made colonel. When I fly. When I was checking out people and I failed them when we were flying tankers. But I'll tell you what it was. That's another thing I didn't tell you. Maybe I'm being too but I think that's what you want to hear. When I became the test pilot, I became the instructor pilot, and I tested pilots, take them up for a flight ride. And I put a few people down because and then I trained them while I was giving the test flight. And we were number 23 down of 23 flight people that flew KC-97s. because the headquarters would send down one of their test pilots, independent, and they would fire people, including the test pilot. We were number 3 down of 23, and that's when this colonel, that's when I first met him. He made me the test pilot. See how a colonel becomes general, and here you are over here, he pulls you. Yeah, my wife told me I'm a stupid, but anyway, I am sometimes. So anyway, I went in and I flew with 5 guys, and I down, so we would have a mission going, in Goose Bay. I'd do them one at a time. I fired 5 of them. I gave them one thing that I could do with the best of them. I'm bragging again. I could make a 45-degree turn it up there, and just use trim tabs all the way around. And these guys would go in there like this, and you had a 50-foot up and down. Now that's a big airplane. It's huge, and it'll slide on you. But it's so simple that they're in awe. And where did I learn that? I learned that flying another different kind of B-25. But now, the trim tabs, everything now. They'd go up, and I'd say, look, watch this. I flunked them. You gotta show me next time you can do it. But several other things you did were right on the edge, but you were doing this up and down, 5, 6, 5. Boy, sometimes you got to turn like that. I mean, a 45-degree turn is a big turn in a great big airplane. You're going to go this way. You have to trim the elevators, the aileron. You're busy. They're on the wheel.
Yeah.
You don't have to reach down. Instead of doing this, you do this. And I said, watch this. I turned around, and I had an engineer, little guy. He loved watching me. He said, "Oh." So I turned around. I turned it into the green. I took my hands off the wheel. I had them on. I said, "What do you say here, fella?" Because I had it set up by this way. In other words, all I had to do was turn it. I knew, and I turned around about 15 seconds. We didn't lose 50 feet. Well, how's it going back there? How do you feel? What do you do? And I showed him how to do it. It just, I trimmed it up and then turned around, and it held.
The transition between the Army Air Corps and the Air Force.
Wouldn't even know the difference.
Why?
Oh, they changed the, then we went by, we used to have a serial number. Then when we changed over, we went into our Social Security number, and we got Social Security. Yeah.
Is that the big difference?
Social Security, still got it now. And my retirement is fantastic. I'm not going to brag about that. No, keep it down.
Well, you deserve every bit of it. You just give that much service to the country. Because it's
Yeah.
a lot of time away from home.
Yeah.
a lot
Well,
of
they
work
did
back.
one thing that was wrong. And this president and the head of the, who everybody hated, Rumsfeld, he was the one that did this. When I went in the service, they told me if I stayed 20 years, I'd get health for life. Okay? That's back in 72. Every year, it would come up to Congress and turn down. And it's out of even when this was out of the Air Force, Pentagon money, not out of the funds. And even the Pentagon didn't do it. Rumsfeld came in. You know how many years later? Last year. Now I've got health for life, and it's fantastic. But he went 70 years before they gave it to us. Each year it would come up to Congress, and Congress would turn it down. But when Rumsfeld got there, the president did it, Bush. So there were some good things I like about him. I mean, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to get into politics, but he did that. In many ways, he did some good stuff. And he did some stuff that wasn't so hot, I guess. But anyway, I'm not the judge.
If you had to give some advice to a young person going to
Listen to your mother and father. They're smarter than you are, especially your mother. You know what my mother did? And I kept getting mopey. Scrub floors for me. I'm sorry. And my father, and she worried about me. And we had two daughters. We had two sisters. And that's the biggest thing I'd tell them. I got grandkids. Listen to your grandfather. Don't say old fart. Don't. You can put that in there. Really. I got 4 of them. I got one that's a smart thing.
Yeah.
And they don't listen. Some of them. They should listen. Because, boy, we got so much information that they may never get. And we listen, and you listen. That's another one. Listen. Don't be a big bullshitter like me. Listen. I listen, believe it or not. If you don't listen, you're gone. If you think you're better or smarter than the next guy, you're gone. The other thing is, try to be cool. I don't know. It's one of those things maybe I learned when I was flying and I had to do things in an emergency. But if you don't panic, panic kills you. So, number 1, listen to your elders. I see that in my own kids. Then they'll come back and say, you were right. Yeah, please.
Okay.
I've been talking too much.
No, I mean, the stories are fantastic. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's not very many people that go before, World War II all the way up to, the modern day. Were you more afraid on your second mission or your first mission?
All of them.
How'd you face it?
Scared like hell.
How did you?
I faced it.
Why?
You know what? I'm going to tell you something. My mother's watching me. I swear to God. You're going to make me do it again.
Okay.
I was afraid, but I never, in my pants. I did everything right. I didn't panic, but I was scared. You got to be. When you see those boom, boom, booms, and you see an airplane blowing up in front of you, how would you feel? You got to do the job. And when I say listen to your mother, now I guess you understand why. I'll end it at that.